Title of the first section is Solving Equations by Combining Like Terms. In this section we'll solve equations, but we'll first combine like terms. First equation is 4n minus 2n equals 18. At the beginning of this question we have like terms. Again, like terms are the same variable with the same exponent. 4n minus 2n. If we combine those, would be 2n. 4 minus 2 would be 2, and the variable stays the same. So 2n equals 18. And last step, to get rid of the 2, we can divide by 2, and n is equal to 9. Second question, and last question for the section. Negative 2y plus 5 plus 5y equals 14. Again, check to see if we can combine like terms. We have the same variable y on the same side of the equation, so we can combine those. Negative 2y plus 5y would be 3y. Negative 2 plus 5 is different signs, so we'll subtract 5 minus 2, which would be 3. The 5 is bigger, so it's a positive 3. The plus 5 stays the same and equals 14. Solving from here, the opposite of plus 5 would be minus 5 on both sides. 3y stays the same. 5 minus 5 cancels. And 14 minus 5 would be 9. And last step, we can divide by 3, and y is equal to 3. Title of the next section is Solving Equations Using Distributive Property. Again, we'll solve the equations, but this time we'll use distributive property, which is where you multiply inside the parentheses. First equation is 2, and inside parentheses 8 plus p equals 22. If you remember distributive property, we'll take the number 2 and multiply it by each term on the inside of the parentheses. In this case we'll have 2 times 8, which would be 16. And 2 times p would be plus 2p equals 22. Solving for p, we want to get rid of the 16. Adding 16, we can do the opposite, which is minus 16. 16 minus 16 would cancel. 2p would stay the same. And 22 minus 16 would be 6. Last step, we can divide by 2, and p is equal to 3. Second question, and last question for the section. Negative 4, and inside parentheses x plus 6 equals negative 40. And again, the negative 4 outside the parentheses, we can distribute or multiply inside the parentheses. Negative 4 times x would be negative 4x, and negative 4 times a positive 6 would be negative 24, equals negative 40. Solving from here, to get x by itself, we want to get rid of the minus 24. So we can add 24 to both sides. Negative 4x would stay the same. Minus 24 and plus 24 would cancel. And we have negative 40 plus 24. If we have different signs, one positive and one negative, we'll subtract those numbers. So 40 minus 24 would be 16. And you look at the bigger number, in this case 40 is the bigger number, so the negative stays with the 16. So negative 40 plus 24 would be negative 16. And last step, negative 4 times x, cancel out multiplying by negative 4. You can divide each side by negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 cancels. So the final answer would be x equals negative 16 divided by negative 4. 16 divided by 4 would be 4. And when you divide two negatives, the answer is positive. So x equals 4. A landlord requires first month's rent and half of 1 month's rent as a deposit. If the total amount to move in is $1,725, how much is 1 month's rent? Again, to solve this question, we can write an equation using a variable like x and solve for x. If we're looking for 1 month's rent, we can let x be the total of 1 month's rent. When you move in, you have to pay the first month's rent, which is x, and also you have to pay 1/2 month's rent as a deposit. If you're paying extra, that would be adding to your total. Half of 1 month's rent would be 1/2 of x, since x is 1 month's rent. So you have the first month plus 1/2 of a month, and that equals the total that you pay, which is $1,725. Solving this question, if we take 1/2, we can change that to a decimal. 1/2 is 0.5 as a decimal, so 1/2 x would be 0.5x, equals 1725. To combine like terms, if we have x plus 0.5x, x, if you want to, you can put a 1 in front. So we have 1x plus 0.5x, or 1 plus 0.5 would be 1.5x, equals 1725. Solving from here, 1.5 times x. To get rid of multiplying by 1.5, we can divide by 1.5. And x would equal 1725 divided by 1.5. Dividing decimals again, we can use long division. The top number or numerator goes inside, 1725. And 1.5, the number we're dividing by, goes outside. Keep in mind when you divide decimals, you can have decimals inside the division symbol, but you're not allowed to have decimals outside. If you do, we can just move the decimal to the right one spot, which becomes 15. And 1725 would have a decimal at the end. If we move the outside decimal one spot, we'll move the inside decimal one spot. If we move past the numbers, we can put a 0 as a placeholder. So now we have 17,250 divided by 15. Dividing those, 15 goes into 17 one time. 1 times 15 would be 15. And we'll subtract when we divide. 7 minus 5 would be 2. And 1 minus 1 would be 0. Bring down the next number. So we'll have 22. 15 goes into 22, again just one time. 1 times 15 would be 15. And subtracting 22 minus 15 would be 7. And bring down the next number, which is 5. Now we have 15 into 75. If you think about that, it goes in 5 times. 5 times 5 would be 25, carry the 2, and 5 times 1 would be 5, plus 2 more would be 7. 75 minus 75 would be 0. And we still have one number, the 0 we can bring down. 15 into 0 would be 0. 0 times 15 would be 0. So we'll have no remainder. And our answer up top, 1150. So a month of rent would be $1,150.